So what did you think of that rule? Have you ever heard of that before? So for the purpose of spelling, when we go to spell words that have that AR or OR phonogram at the end, we as your teachers are going to really stretch out the sounds in those words. So if we're going to teach you how to spell the word actor, we're not going to say actor. That's how we say it out loud, right? We're going to say actor for the purpose of helping you to be able to spell actor. So you know that it's the OR phonogram at the end and not an ER like the of her. Here's what's going on with English words. Spellings do not change in English words, but the sounds often change throughout time, which is why we see words like actor being still spelled with an OR. We're not going to change the spelling just because over time the sounds have changed. Does that make sense? Which is why popular is still spelled with an AR, popular, because we're not going to change the spelling just because over time the sounds have changed. Now it's time to discover a new rule that is related to our IGH. In your student notebooks on page 117, you're going to notice lots of words with that IGH. Here's your job. You're going to cut out those words and you're going to try to sort them into categories. You can either sort with someone next to you, you can sort as a group, you can sort as an entire class. I will give you a hint. You're only going to sort these words into 2 categories or 2 columns. So look for words that are similar and try to put words in each of the categories. Now at this point you may want to pause the video because I'm going to keep going and we're going to talk about the rule, but I want you to discover the rule about the IGH. Think about, where do you see the IGH or the GH even by itself? Do you see it at the beginning, middle, or end of a word? What do you notice? What you should have noticed as you were exploring is that you can divide this into 2 different categories. You have words where IGH is just all by itself, right? At the end of a word. Let me give you an example, like the word sigh. It's all by itself at the end of the word. And what do I mean by all by itself? In other words, it's not IGH with a T at the end. Like in the word bite. Okay? Does that make sense? So you should have sorted it into 2 categories. One category has IGH at the end of the word, and then the IGH has a T at the end of the word. That leads us to a new rule. So let me go over this rule really quickly. Do you see how there's just a GH and then a GHT? The reason there's not an I on this rule is because there are other instances where we have a GH in a word and it doesn't have an I in front. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So see how there's a line and then the GH and the GHT? It's showing that this is at the end of English words. Does that make sense? Do you see this? This means sound. So the GH and the GHT, make the sound either, here's the rule, they either make no sound, it's silent, there's absolutely no sound, or it's pronounced with an F or F sound. Now, I don't know, did you look at your list? Did any of our IGH words have a F sound at the end? They didn't, did they? We'll talk about that in a minute. But let's look at some of these words, okay? S, I. Do you hear the GH sound in that word at all? Sigh, sigh. No, you didn't hear it, did you? Let's try this one. Bite, bite. Do you hear the GH in that word? No, you didn't hear it, did you? As a matter of fact, in all of your words, you never hear the GH, do you? It's completely silent. And in this phonogram, all it's doing is working together with the I to make an I sound. Now, Mr. Slates, what about that sound? That doesn't really happen, does it? Well, let me give you an example. Okay? And this is a GH where there's no I in front. This is the word rough. 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 Later on in Logic of English, we will learn that this is an entire phonogram altogether that actually makes 6 sounds. Amazing, right? But in this case, do you hear the f sound at the end? Rough. Rough. It's making a f sound. Here's another one. It rhymes with rough. Anyone know what that word is? Tough. Tough. Like this is so tough. Here's another one. Now you would think, oh, these must rhyme. Rough, tough, cuff, right? Wrong. This makes a lot of sounds. This O-U-G-H. This is the word cough. Cough. The last one we're going to do is totally different, and it has an A-U and a G-H. This is a really common word that you all just need to know because you're going to find it in every book, practically, that you read, as long as it's funny. Anyone know what this word is? Laugh. Laugh. Do you hear how the GH is making the f sound? I don't say la. That is not how I say that word. Nor do I say ra. So do you see how when you go to sound out a word, it doesn't always work to stretch out every single sound unless you know some of these phonograms that are larger, that are longer, which is why we teach you this phonogram. You need to know this. You should not be sounding each sound out. It's I, 3-letter I. Okay, boys and girls, I hope you have a great day. Enjoy Lesson 8.